Hello friends, welcome to my channel. Myself Manjeet Kaur and today we will be talking about the Docker Compose. So let's share you the agenda for today. First of all, we will be talking about what is Docker Compose, its definition, and then we will be talking about the benefits of the Docker Compose, and eventually we will see how we can use the Docker Compose. So let's get started. First of all, when we talk about Docker Compose, we have the first point that it is a tool for defining and running multi-container Docker applications. Because in the real life application world, we don't have any application that has just one container. So being practical here, we have applications which are multi-container and it might get very cumbersome in order to manage those multi-containers at once. So here the Docker Compose comes into picture. It is a tool that will help us to overcome this issue. Now the second point is that it is a YAML file, and YAML file is yet another markup language file. So this is a file which is both human readable as well as machine optimized. So it will very easy for both the parties to understand and parse. And what are the three building blocks that this Docker compose.yaml is composed of? You have to remember that it is composed of application services, network, and volumes. These are the three building blocks that make up the Docker compose.yaml file. So the extension can be .yml or .yaml, both will work out. Then the third point is that it is easily workable in all the environments, whether talking about the production environment, staging environment, development environment, testing, and even it can be worked around in the continuous integration workflows. So it is very much comfortable in all the environments, no issue in that part. Then if we want to say that we have configured application services, network, and volume and all of the stuff in our Docker Compose, then how can we start up that services? So there's a simple command, that is Docker Compose up command. Similarly, we have the stop services command with using the Docker Compose down command. Next, we will talk about the benefits of Docker Compose. So let's see, if there wasn't Docker Compose, then what will be the scene? Then we have to build and run our one container at a time, and we have to manually connect those containers together. So we have to be very careful with all the dependencies and startup orders. So what it means, like if we want to build or run a container, so we have a docker run commands. So there would be a long docker run commands and multiple docker run commands. Similarly, if we want to create networks, we have multiple docker network creation commands. So it will be very much possible to have an human error while executing those commands, and um, eventually manual error might get involved, and we have to be very careful with the dependency. So some services are dependent on other services. If this service is running, then only we have to run that command. So we have to be very careful which services we are giving in a command first, and then we are giving the second command of which services. So it is very interdependent on each other. So this is the issue that would be there if we don't have Docker Compose. So now let's see the world with Docker Compose. So with Docker Compose, the multi Docker container applications we can incorporate in YAML files. With even a single command, we can deploy the entire application. So it works with the networking, volume, and control plane, all of these. So Docker Compose is much supported to handle the container dependencies, so we don't have to worry about any of the container dependencies. So it is very much easier to use Docker Compose. Then, what is the use of Docker Compose? It is a three-step process. Docker Compose is a three-step process. How we can use this? First, we have to define our application's environment with a Docker file. So it is a capable of supporting the declaration, this Docker Compose, of environment variables within an environment file .env file, or we can have an environment within a Docker Compose as well. So it is a pre-processing step when we are working with the Docker Compose.yaml files, and there are two kinds of environment. One is static environment, another one is the dynamic environment, and this is one of the example how we can declare the static environment and the dynamic environment. So dynamic environment has to be followed with the dollar and curly braces notation as we have used in this user, and static we can give it like that only. Then talking about the second point of use of Docker Compose is that we have to define the services that will make our application in the Docker Compose file. So let's say we have an application that has a front end, back end, and a database. Then we would likely split those components from front end, back end, and database into three different components and three different services. And as you can see, we have these services, and under services we have segregated the front end, back end, the database services, and we might have an individual images for all of these. So this is how we have to define the services inside our docker compose.yaml file. Then the third point is that we have to run the CLI command, which is docker compose up, and all of the things would be done. So you don't have to worry about that. So this is all about the Docker Compose. In the next video, we will be installing Docker Compose and then creating one. And it is very important that before doing an hands-on, we have some basic knowledge about the Docker Compose, and then eventually we move on to the hands-on. And eventually in the next video, as I told, we will be doing installation and creation of one of the Docker Compose file. And we will see in the next lecture. Thank you very much.